Hello and welcome to the Practitioner Podcast. This is a brand new podcast from us at Renaissance. We're a network of missional practitioners and microchurches in the greater Boston area. Every episode, we talk about themes around living on mission and living in microchurch community. Our conversations are hoping to be practical, touching on the realities of everyday, ordinary people. And this is because our mission is about cultivating beautiful kingdom people embedded in the everyday stuff of life. And today, I am here with the one and only
Drew Thurman.
And my name is Christine Lee. I thought, before we get into the theme, it's going to make sense later when you listen. But my question for us today is, what is something that always makes you cry? Do you want me to go first? You want to go second? Or
Yeah, is it good or bad cry? Does it matter? In whatever way?
I mean, whatever you want to share. This is a safe space, Drew.
Okay.
You can tell us
Yeah,
what makes
yeah,
you cry in
yeah.
that way. You can have a mental breakdown here if you need.
Yeah, you can go first.
Okay. Videos of people getting puppies for Christmas. I weep every time I watch one. Even if it's like a crappy pixelated Facebook video. Me, just tears. I love it so much. I'm so happy they get a dog when they want one.
Yeah.
Stop judging me. Your face is
No, I'm not judging you. I was just, I'm glad everybody has their own thing that brings them tears. So,
Okay, whatever.
I mean, I appreciate your deep love of dogs.
I do. I love them. Yeah. Do you know I used to be allergic to their saliva?
That's a thing?
Yeah, I used to get a rash every time a dog licks me. And then I got my own dog and he healed me. So honestly, my dog is a miracle.
I have no comment. I mean, Dobby is pretty awesome, so I will say I'll qualify him as a miracle. So.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Ready for sainthood.
I was gonna say ready for sainthood. For me, the first thing that came to mind, I am in my dad era, so I've got little girls, and I'm rewatching. I'm watching new kid movies, but I'm watching ones that were part of my childhood. And man, whoever makes these movies, they just want to make adults cry. They make me cry every time. Land Before Time, I'm serious. That scarred my childhood. I still I just see screenshots and I want to cry.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Homeward Bound gets me every time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So but then there's all these new ones too. Every one of them, it's just why is there always a parent dying, or is there some just traumatic moment that they just are in they want to make us all just bawl our eyes out.
I do think it's the newer movies, they're a little bit more wholesome, but think about Bambi. It was just oh, your mother gets shot with a gun at the beginning. Good luck, kids. Have some fun.
I know.
Here's a cute little baby deer, I guess.
Or Mufasa, that.
Oh my gosh.
That still ruined a big chunk. Yeah. Yeah, it was what is with Disney and parents dying? Can we just keep the parents alive for the?
It's early preparation for grief, I guess.
I guess, man. So yeah, that gets me every time. So, and then I think there's some music that always brings me back to something that I've gone through. That's a little bit more serious, but something that I've gone through or something experienced. I typically have a very there's art forms that I have a very visceral reaction. So I used to, back in previous paradigms, anytime I would mention that I cried, I would say, I don't cry that often. And then I would tell the story. And Bree finally was like, you cry all the time? So stop saying that. Stop prefacing your stories. It's okay for everyone to know that you're a big baby, that you just cry all the time about things. So yeah.
I mean, yeah, vibes. I mean, I cry at all the reality TV shows I watch, pretty much. So.
Yeah, that doesn't get me.
Okay. Well, have some empathy, please.
Sorry.
It's okay. I'll forgive you because I'm a Christian. Okay. Let's get into this real stuff. We are going to go back and forth every episode on who's bringing theme, but today Drew's got it. So Drew, take us away.
Yeah, our theme that we're bringing this time is allowing your neighborhood to break your heart is the theme. Kind of a little bit interesting. I think this applies to both missional practitioners and microchurch leaders, but the impetus for this was we are kind of loosely a part of a network called Parish Collective. They do some really cool conferences and gatherings. They also provide resources and occasionally just have Zoom calls for me to jump on with people just like us all across the United States and Canada that are trying to do similar things and just really be connected to God's dream for their place. And I was listening to one of kind of the leaders at the center of that. I've really appreciated some of his literature, Dwight Friesen, who was just mentioning that to truly become, to operate with missional, faithful presence, to truly be a part of a place is for it to have it break your heart. And he was just sharing some of his own pain points in his own place and what that meant. And I just really thought he so eloquently put into words what I felt. And I realized, I think before the journey that I've been on and that I'm inviting other people on, that I have often been so detached from place and space. I only operated in place and space in terms of consumeristic mindset, what it could do for me. And I think actually your heart breaking, it bringing you to tears, is a really healthy sign that you are truly embedded in the narrative of the story that is that place and the people that inhabit it alongside you. So that's going to be what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I love that. So everybody strap in because we're going to get in our feels, I guess.
It's all feels and vibes, baby. Like that's what this one's about. So
if you don't cry during this podcast, you even have a heart.
Exactly.
Just kidding.
Well, speaking of that, I want you to start this because I'm bringing the topic. But we talk a lot at Renaissance about the ministry of presence. We mentioned this. We have an entire 6 months where we are unpacking some of these themes. We talk about being embedded. We try to talk about practices of being rooted in our neighborhoods, in the places that we study and play as well. And so I kind of hinted at it, but like when I told you I wanted to bring this topic to the table, what were you thinking? Like, why should we consider our hearts breaking as a sign of that we are doing the work and that we're actively engaged in it?
Yeah, I think where my mind went first was about Jesus being fully God and fully human. And I think this also really touches on some of my work as a therapist, that as human beings, we're not this like truncated brain on sticks or just witnesses with our eyeballs and taking things in, but we experience things holistically with our minds, with our emotions, and in our bodies. And I think for me, I relate this again to my work with my clients. If I'm just merely observing them and not actually caring for them and feeling something with them, for them, it's really hard to actually care for them in any meaningful way. And so, at least in my background, there's been a lot of ministry where, people host events like, we're going to serve our city. And you like go in and you like rake some yards and you're like, okay, we did it. And actually that wasn't really about, if you dial down into the emotion of it, what did you feel? A lot of those feelings are towards yourself, feeling good about yourself, feeling like you were helpful, feeling like all these things, instead of feeling something for the people, for the land, for whatever it is that's embedded in that place and understanding it. I think I always tell people that our emotions should not be the driving, deciding factor for much in our lives, but they're really, really important data points. And when we close off our emotions, we're missing so much data of how we can understand other people, the world, and God. And I think that, for me, when you brought this up, I was like, I think this will be really cool for us to discuss what it looks like to be intentional about emotionality in our spirituality and being rooted in a place. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I think you said it really well. The first thing that came to mind, I remember a couple of years ago talking to someone when they found out what I did, and they brought up some of that. Like, I've seen churches that say they're for the city, and I think the phrase that was uttered, like, they're for the city in so much that it helps them get people to their church. And I thought, like, ouch, like, and I've been there, like, so it's not like I'm sitting like in judgment. I've probably operated with the same thing. And yeah, I think there's for me, like, I think that beyond that, there's a couple of levels. I really think that one, I love what you're talking about with an embodied mindset of our faith and our spirituality. I think there is a tendency in evangelical Christian spirituality of being escapist or of operating like we're above where we're at, like we've got the answers and the people around us don't know. And so that we only inhabit our spaces in so much as they help us, achieve the goals that we need to evangelize or to get people into the sacred safe space. And I think there's just no way to read the scriptures or to operate spiritually and see that. We even see this from Jesus of being truly embedded in the story of where we're at, understanding there's a level of mutuality. Like I still have needs, emotional and physical. There is a story of the place that I'm in long before I showed up. There's going to be one that's going to be being told after I'm there. There's unique things in my context of brokenness and pain, past sin that has hurt what this place and the people here can become, what it looks like to live into God's dream. And so I think it's a really good sign, like if there isn't compassion and empathy, that you don't feel a deep allegiance to the point that there is some emotionality, I think I would start to question how much you actually know names and you know people and you're rooted, embedded. Because I think for a lot of folks, they huddle in their little Christian circles, they go to their Christian activities, and there really isn't the same level of embeddedness and rootedness with the people around them. And I think it shows. And so, yeah, I think that's a part of why I really loved what Dwight was getting at, for it to, if you're going to practice faithful presence, it's going to mean your neighborhood is going to break your heart. It's going to mean that you walk wounded and hurt, carrying with you the burdens of your place and the people that are experiencing them.
Yeah. And as you kind of talk about that, it feels like maybe we should talk and discuss how do we reframe that journey of presence and everyday practitionership into something that is an emotional as well as spiritual pursuit. And I guess maybe can you talk us through what did it take for that to happen for you? And what natural steps did you take to get towards this kind of investment?
I'm loving, by the way, that Dobby, we just talked about him being a saint and now he's being a sinner. So,
I mean, he's actually just throwing up right now.
oh no.
So,
Oh no.
everybody, welcome to my life. This is what's causing me to cry currently. Just threw up on the rug. So, it's pretty cool. And now he might poop himself. So,
No.
oh, he is pooping himself in the background. You can't see it. It's R-rated.
Yeah. Hopefully his stomach doesn't need to get pumped again. We've talked about
I hope so too. Did y'all know that a tiny dog can eat 25 raisins and 3 can kill him? So it's good stuff.
Yeah. Back to your question. I think the journey there is really just to, I think one, it is pace. We kind of talk about a level of pace, presence and participation. So we want to always just first invite people, like, what does it look like to slow down? We live very busy lives, and a lot of modern life, especially with our conveniences of cars, we just think of ourselves as very translocal. Like, where can I go to get the best experiences or the best things? Depending on, especially in an urban area, there's always some other place in the city or in the suburbs that has some other experience that you need to be taking in. But what does it look like to slow ourselves down and to be fully in the place that we're at, to not view our home or our apartment, the place that we work, the place that we play, like any of this as unintentional, and we just double down our investment there. And then we begin to notice the presence both of God and of others around us. We start to understand the story that's taking place around us. Like, where has there been brokenness in the past? Where has there been sin? Where has there been triumphs? What are people celebrating here? What is good news for people that are around me? What do people do for fun? What motivates them? What seems to upset them? Where are there people that have power? And why do they have power? Why are others powerless? And what are the problems that are existing in the midst of that? So you're having all of this constantly going on and kind of circling around you as you operate in your place, and then you're participating in that story then and saying, like, what does it look like for me to cast my lot and say, these are my people, and I can't fix everything, I can't solve everything, but I want to be an active character in that drama and that narrative that's going on around me, believing that, like, if I continue to operate faithfully in that place and participate there, God seems to do something with the cumulative faithfulness over a long period of time. Yeah. So that I don't know about you, but those have been the steps for me. Like, I'd never done that anywhere else I'd ever been. To walk so much, to like be involved in so many different like civic things, to have such like a deep understanding of my neighbors, not in just like a how do I get you to church, but just like who you are, like what is your, what culture are you coming from, what are your experiences, what gets you excited, on down the line, and it totally changes everything.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, again, part of this goes to as well for me of how do you notice what it is that you're feeling and having emotional vocabulary. I think that's pretty important in order to start weaving in these patterns again. And again, some of us might need like professional help with that. But I think just like being in tune of like what is it the place that you live in cause you to feel? What are some things that like disturb you about it? And I think especially those more negative emotions, what about that like does that cause you to want to escape it? Does that make you want to lean in? I think most of us want to escape negative emotions. And I think there's like definitely parts of the place I live in that I'm like, I don't love this about this place. Like I don't really like this. But then how can I be mindful of that? That is how I feel. And at the same time, I'm not just gonna opt out. I'm not just gonna be like, I'm gonna eject myself from this place, or I'm not gonna do this anymore because I don't like it. I feel like for me, that's been really helpful. And I think it also has created this sense of being mindful that that's how God treats us in a very ultimate kind of way, right? That there's probably lots of things about me that are imperfect, and yet God does not opt out of me and continues to choose to have a relationship with me. And I think having that type of relationship with where you live and the people that live in your place with you, there's a deeper, like we were saying, commitment, a sense of, I'm in this for the long haul. This may not be ideal. I don't need it to be ideal.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think even to double down on that, I think the other side of it that could be really unhelpful is I also hear when sometimes people have negative emotions, not only do they like not want to be with them, the other thing is to act as if you're not a part of the place. Like I'll hear people talk about their place as if they're not a part of it. So it's, they start talking in third person or describe the people where they're at, and they start to assign blame or villainize them. And it's like, that's really like to talk about your place and the people that are around you that way in such an adversarial way, I think says a lot about how you think about God, and like how you imagine faith. And so I think to just be so detached and disembodied from your place that you're emoting, but just in a very like negative, angry way too. So you're escaping it in a different way, I guess, so to speak, of just like, that's those people's problems are, that's, I'm because I live in a liberal area, because I live in a conservative area, or because these people, like that's their story. I'm not a part of it. It's like, no, now that you live there, you are a part of that story. That is your place. God hasn't put you there by accident. And the fact that you talk about it that way, I think is meaning you are missing God, and what he's doing in the story that's being told right there.
Yeah. I think that makes so much sense when we talk about what it is to live missionally, right? To believe that God has sent us with purpose into the spaces that we inhabit. And that doesn't mean we are to do everything or be everything to everyone, but being mindful of what is God sending me here for? Who is God sending me here for? It might not be everybody, but there might be one person, and it might not always rub you the right way. It might not always make you feel good, but that doesn't take away the importance of it. Okay, let's break this down, though, and get super practical. Why don't you start, Drew? Tell us the story of your neighborhood and tell us what's breaking your heart.
Oh, I think that's really good. Yeah, I mean, Waltham's a really, it's a very interesting neighborhood. We're kind of right on the fringes of like the urban core of Boston, greater Boston area. Very old. I mean, one of the oldest communities in the country because of where we're located at, but have a deep, rich history with industrialization, which has defined a lot of who Waltham has become. We were kind of, in many ways, the birthplace of a lot of industrialization kind of on this side of the Atlantic Ocean. There were several folks that went and stole some technology from London at the time and helped kind of inaugurate the Industrial Revolution here with the first integrated textile mill here in Waltham, Massachusetts. But because of that, Waltham's kind of always had a very blue-collar makeup to it, and in a lot of ways. And I think that's kind of always defined a lot of how Waltham sees itself. And hasn't necessarily moved past and recognized the implications of that. And then also simultaneously, I think there was a period of time, probably in the mid 20th century, where Waltham felt like this bedrock community of Boston that was like a suburb. But because of urban sprawl, we are very densely populated neighborhood that basically, in essence, while we have our own civic government, we operate as a part of Boston. Most people, if they're not working here, work in the city. And there's public transit connected to the rest of the city. I mean, we're a part of it. And so I feel, and because of that, and being one of the cheapest places to live, kind of our old blue collar roots, we have an incredible amount of diversity in our neighborhood. And one of the more lower income areas, we're surrounded by almost all the richest zip codes in Massachusetts. And we constantly kind of are the dirty stepchild that has underperforming schools in comparison. And it's like, ironically, all the churches in those places send their people to Waltham to do service work. We have a lot of social services. If you're not downtown, you come to Waltham to get social services. A lot of that too. A couple of the universities have got a lot of great social work programs that students have stuck around and helped start wonderful nonprofits to care for. Those on the margins in our neighborhood. But because of it, it's a very unique place. And you have this kind of old guard, kind of towny mentality of like, we've had to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, blue collar, like Irish, Italian, American folks who are wonderful, but have a very different perception of their neighborhood, and don't feel like they want to recognize the diversity that's at their doorstep, the stories that are being told, and be the kind of inclusive neighborhood that, our local government doesn't represent the diversity that we have in our neighborhood. So much of who has power in our neighborhood doesn't represent the beautiful diversity of stories that are being told. Those of our, Guatemalan and El Salvadorian and Ugandan neighbors in particular, though there's lots. I mean, we have a big Indian American community as well. Chinese American population as well. So it's a very diverse neighborhood, but you would not know that depending on where you look. And so there could be this beautiful diversity that could be celebrated, and it could make us a better, stronger community. But it seems like it's often minimized, and to the point that I think we're on the fringe of gentrification could really start to transform our neighborhood, and there could be some really detrimental decisions that are made in the next 5 to 10 years if those voices aren't included in what's taking place, and they end up getting pushed out or getting pushed to the margins even further, or being forced to move somewhere else. because they're not included. So I think that breaks my heart a lot. And then obviously just right now in general, I mean, some of the state of what's going on in our culture is just, breaking my heart. Like, we've had ICE raids in our neighborhood. I know that there is a deep fear. I see it walking my girls to school, there's a lot of my Guatemalan and El Salvadorian neighbors that I'm just not seeing anymore. The biggest food pantry in our neighborhood that's helping a number, hundreds of families, like 700-800 families a week. A lot of them food insecure, has seen like a 40-50% drop off in pickups because families are scared to be in such a public place and what that could mean. And so they're actually even thinking through like, what does it look like to recruit delivery drivers to make sure these families are getting fed, and just like what that means. And, it's just this very torn, like, I love that we're a neighborhood that's so proud that we've pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps and we seem to have it figured out. And yet there's a whole group of people who seem to be living into the American dream and who seem to be doing that. And because they have a different cultural tradition, don't get to be celebrated or included in that dream, both from a local or even a national political level. And what that means, I think I would just love to see us become this, Jesus talking about your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, that vision from Revelation of every tongue, tribe, people and language, like that our neighborhood would begin to step into that, and realize that these aren't people just to put up with, that they represent a part of God's image, part of God's design, and they have something beautiful to contribute both to our neighborhood, to our flourishing, but that our interconnection, and our interconnection and our diversity would make us better. That I believe, if we believe that the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit is constantly dividing each other, that it is diversity in unity, even within the personhood of God, that diversity is, that uniformity is actually stunting us from the kind of spirituality that allows us to see God. And so that in our diversity, we are best representing who God is in his design. So I think that's what I would love. I would love to see, that I wouldn't just hear different language spoken on the sidewalks. I wouldn't just hear, or see different cultural traditions, but that they would all have a place at the table, and that we'd see each other's humanity in a different way. So I would say that those are, there's a lot of other things, but I would say those are the things that are breaking my heart the most right now in my neighborhood. What about you?
Yeah. It's interesting because I think there's a lot of similarities about Manchester to Waltham, but we're not as populated, that's for sure. So Manchester is located in the southern part of New Hampshire, where most of the population of New Hampshire lives in the southern part.
Yeah.
And we're a small state, so it's like 1 million people total in the whole state. And Manchester is like a little over 100,000 people. I think one of the funniest things is like, growing up around this area, it's like the biggest city in the state. Maybe Nashua beats us now, but I remember someone came to visit and they're like, "You always told us about growing up in Manchester. I thought it was this big city. It's like a town." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's like a town." Yeah. And same thing, right on the Merrimack River, huge part of the Industrial Revolution here. Lots of mill buildings that are now obviously refurbished into offices and things like that.
Loft apartments.
Loft apartments. Yeah. All the young professionals, they keep telling me, are moving to the city, but I don't see them. And caused a lot of pollution in the Merrimack River that I think we're still seeing some of the effects of, all the way down, many years later. But that is like another interesting thing, is at least what the city's trying to sell us is that it's this up and coming thing, and there's lots of young professionals moving here, and it's going to become a tech hub. But most of the city does not feel like that. And most of the town doesn't really feel like that. And it kind of happens in sections. So we are also a refugee hub. So larger populations of people from the Congo, from Bhutan, Bosnian refugees as well. And something that's really interesting is that most of the time when people get relocated here, they move to the center of the city. And the north part of our city is kind of like where all the old money is. That's like these old homes that are like so expensive, very nice neighborhoods. And then like the southern part is more like where you get where I live, where you get like the plazas and like the mall is here and all that kind of stuff. And the west side is kind of like the lower income neighborhoods overall that is now starting to experience some development. East is like kind of, there's some nicer neighborhoods, not as much old money as the north. And then the center is where all of the poverty is pretty much how the city is structured. We have like a small downtown. And I think it, similarly to you, there's a lot for me of it. 90% of our state is white. And so we don't have a lot of diversity as a state. But then it's almost like all of our diversity is like centralized, mostly in Manchester and then in Nashua. And obviously with what's happening politically right now, it's just a really scary time, and that resources are getting taken away from some of the social services. And Manchester does not have good public transit. So there's kind of been a history of abusing some of these refugees that come in town, where they don't have access to lots of parts of town because there's not good public transit, so they have to live in the center of the city. And then there are these like crappy, terrible apartments and just like landlords that like will make people live in this for like thousands of dollars a month and deplete them of resources. And it's like there are apartments that are cheaper that are on the east side, but they don't know that, you know, like, so there's just stuff like that that's just abuse of power, abuse of systems, of vulnerable, needy people. That for me is just disturbing and just hurts me. And I think my family we're a family of immigrants, so and resonate a lot with that story. Obviously not coming as refugees, but just to know how difficult it is to learn how to integrate into life in America, to have limited resources, and then to just have people clearly take advantage of you and to have limited choice is so can make you feel so helpless. And then added on right now, obviously, like fears of being deported, even if you've come here in a legitimate way. For me as an immigrant that's now become a naturalized citizen, that makes me angry. It makes me really angry. We have a very low vacancy rating, which is very interesting. And I've lived in different parts of the country, and I think something that's been kind of I don't know what's the right word for it. Annoying is like the nicest word I have for it. Coming back is that Manchester is a New England town. So, and we are an hour north of Boston. And so it's definitely way cheaper to live here in New Hampshire than it is to live anywhere near the Boston area. But again, we're a town that's like a little over 100,000 people, and the housing prices are crazy for like the little amenities that we actually have in the city. So I used to live in Vegas. I used to live in Tucson, Arizona, where it's like cities of like 1 million residents. And it's like, and times are different now, but I was able to get an apartment, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, nice apartments that were $1,000 a month. And I moved back here during the pandemic, and we had a less than 1% vacancy rating in the whole city for both renting and buying. And at the same time, it's like I could pay $1,800 to rent like a 400 square foot weird space that like has like 2 closets and doesn't make any sense, right? So that's part of it's just like it's an older town, you know, so like the buildings are going to be like that. But because of its vicinity to Boston, it just makes finding appropriate housing that's also affordable pretty difficult in comparison to the amenities and the size of the town. And again, I think I say that as a person that has a good amount of privilege and like has like a stable full-time job and was able to like find a place to live, and to think about people that are low income, that have less resources, the difficulty to just find a place to live is so unmooring and so disturbing, and the amount of stress that adds to your life, to me is, I think about that a lot. I think also part of that is because I work with some low income folks in my work as a counselor, And so I think I get to hear those stories often, and it's always, I don't know, like, what do you do when you hear these stories of people that are your neighbors that are like, I can't afford gas to get hot water in my house. Like, I can't find a place to live. I'm homeless right now, and I'm trying my best, and I'm trying to get the services I need. I'm doing all the right things. I've filled out all the right paperwork, and it's just going nowhere. There's nothing left for me to do.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff, it feels so unfair, like and it makes me feel helpless, and it's not even my life. I think for me, that's the stuff where it's really hard to figure out, like, what does it mean to help? What does it mean to be a person of peace, to be good news? And sometimes just being like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to help you. I don't know how to make this different in your life.
Yeah, like yes, the housing issue in New England is just so bad, and we're dealing with that. I mean, we have, anytime affordable housing gets built, or like new housing, they have to give a percentage of it to affordable housing. They'll do a lottery system. There'll be 20 units and 2,000 entries, and so even if you win it, you like see what they consider it, the price to be affordable, and it's just like, that's not affordable. Like, it's just, the whole thing is so broken. But as you were talking, and I was just even reflecting on my own words, like, isn't it interesting that, like, the things that we said, there are spiritual things that we absolutely break our hearts as well, but like that we would just be categorized traditionally as spiritual. But like, when you go on this journey, like, I didn't plan on being an urbanist. I didn't plan on being like a neighborhood advocate who started caring about like the actual architecture of my neighborhood, and what the condition of the sidewalks and public transit and affordable housing and the access to groceries and like social services. Like, that was never on my radar when I was just like, yeah, cool, if I can do some church work, that's great. But this journey leads you there. And it's like, sometimes I'll have people charge me. They're like, well, like, oh, you just don't care about the gospel the same way you used to, or you've just become, you've become progressive. Like, no, I've not. Like, this is all my neighborhood. Like, I'm not like flying around the country advocating for these issues, though I think they would be wonderful if more people had access to these things. But these are the people I rub shoulders with. I have names. Like, I know their stories. Like, this isn't theory to me. And yeah, it's captivated my heart. It's broken. Like, I see it. I walk by the houses. I see the food insecurity. I see the growing unhoused population and the people in below zero temperature sleeping in a bus stop or an ATM bank. Like, I see these things. Like, I serve in some of the nonprofits that helps feed and care and find out stories. Like, these are all things. And so how could it not change my heart? How could it not affect me? I actually have the space to do life with them, and it's transformed my my habits and my loves and my interests. And so I just thought it was just so interesting as we were talking about that, the sort of things that, that you realize are systemic and that you need to give your time to, that it's not that like maybe God's calling me as a character in the drama of this more than just like, well, I just say a prayer or I have a service day once a year. Right. And like, there's a part of God's embodied work through me that is going to transform all areas of my life. And I'm still walking that out. God's constantly shaping, out of my privilege, things that I've never cared about before, that he's reordering my loves in that way. So yeah, I just thought it was so interesting the way that we talk. And I think that any true neighborhood practitioner, missional practitioner, talks this way.
What way?
They have a pulse of their neighborhood. They have a pulse of the systems that are holding people back, the things that are broken. They're not just talking about their church, or they're not just talking about their neighborhood in terms of what they can consume, how nice the houses are, or how much room they have on their lot, or how cool the restaurants are nearby. They talk about it from a deeply felt level, that's just different. You can sense it, when I ask people about where, like, tell me about your neighborhood, tell me about what's going on. I can tell in 10 minutes if they're a true neighborhood practitioner, or if they're just like living there because it had good schools and it was an up and coming zip code, or they were close to their church. I think and you probably can feel the same way. There's like a big difference between the two of those.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like I still have so much to learn, right? And I think maybe that's the turning point of kind of where I hope we can kind of end this conversation, which is it is so important to lament these aspects of our neighborhood and to lament the places that we live. And I also want us to talk about where we feel expectant hope, how we're clinging to God's work and finding ourselves believing that there can be change. And I think that maybe I'll start, it's just that, like, I think for me, it's the fact that I don't feel like as much as there's stuff that really bothers me, I know that it doesn't have to be a quick fix, and that even the things I don't know about my neighborhood yet, the things I don't know how to solve yet, that I get to be a part of God's ongoing work and ongoing story, and that God is actively working continuously. And so there are things that I don't understand about my neighborhood. I feel like you know so much more about your neighborhood than me in so many ways, but it doesn't have to be a comparison game. And I think I hope people can feel encouraged by that. It's just like, to become a practitioner, it's more just how do we have greater curiosity and believe, like, God is inviting us into this work deeper and deeper. And so I think that's where I find some of that hope is, like, there are things I don't understand. I'm not involved in, like, the civic government as deep, and honestly I don't really want to be, but at the same time I'm like, well, maybe God is inviting me to learn more, to do more there, and that will be a part of my ongoing journey and story. And that gives me hope that it doesn't have to be like, well, by tomorrow I have to fix X, Y, Z, or else, however you want to fill in that blank. But yeah, I think that to me, that's where I'm clinging to God too, is that as I look to have a real relationship with Jesus, that his Spirit will continue to reveal things to me about himself, about how he's working in my town, and then how he wants me to join him in that. And that even if the changes are small, even if I don't see any of the results, that being invited into the story is worth engaging in.
No, I think that's so good. And I mean, I think for me, I think having a broken heart and hope they're two sides of the same coin. My heart's breaking because I want so much more for my neighbors. I want so much more for my place. I believe in God's embodied, holistic gospel, that we aren't just souls trapped in our bodies, that all of this, everything is a gift, and he desires all of creation to experience his goodness, that no one should have to wonder where their next meal's coming from, or if they can pay their bills, or if they can live in a decent place. No one should have to wonder if they're loved, or if their culture matters, or if their personhood is less than someone else. None of those things, and so, yeah, I think having your heart broken and hope is, I think, kind of both sides. And I would, walking back what we were just saying a minute ago, I do want to clarify and just say, I know there's probably people listening to this that maybe don't live in as densely urban places as we do. Well, a lot probably do listen to this podcast that are, but there is hidden brokenness. I'll sometimes when I do some of our coaching and we walk through some of this, people are like, well, I do live in an upwardly mobile, affluent suburb. There's just no brokenness. There's no felt need here. And actually there is. It's just you're a lot better at hiding it. And so there's a lot of things there that it might look different than some of the things that we were describing, as there's probably a lot of overlap in our two neighborhoods, but there are things, there are brokenness, there are things that God's wanting to upend there too, to make his dream of creation, of what he wants for all of us in our wholeness. So to really to dig down deep in some of that too, and do the work, because it's in every neighborhood, maybe just more visible, maybe in some than others, but it's there in every one of them, and and sometimes it might even just be the collective way a lot of people in a neighborhood are thinking, the kind of people they're trying to keep out, the way that they're structuring their neighborhood so that only certain people in certain economic brackets can work. I think of one of the local neighborhoods here who, when I first moved here, they had signs up that they were all such wealthy people with big plots of land were protesting a housing development that was going in that was going to include affordable housing because they didn't want those people in their neighborhood. So people that were having, kindness matters and all lives matter and Black lives matter in signs in their neighborhood, and at the same time didn't want those actual people to live in there. Well, okay, there's some work to be done there. Like, it might look different, but I think you've got some things that you can dedicate your life to that should break your heart and should lead you to lament, but also like hope for something better. And I think it's the same thing going back to our neighborhoods. Yeah, like, yes, I feel lament, but because I'm not a nihilist or something, like, because I believe in God, who has not only worked in the past, but is working in the present, that in his Spirit's constantly there if I pay attention. I'm hopeful that in small ways, there are these large issues that are, I can't fix for my whole neighborhood. I can't fix for everybody, but I can fix for the person that God puts in front of me that day. Like, what can I do for that person? Or when I serve at a nonprofit, like when I hear of a need, like, I'm not going to let these massive issues allow me to be apathetic to the thing I can do that day. And so I keep believing, because I'm a part of a larger story, as you were saying, I'm one cog in something much bigger that's taking place, that I believe that my small acts of faithfulness join something that God's telling, a tapestry that God's telling through others. And I want to continue, and that's part of the reason I believe in community and I believe in microchurch and the church, is I want to use those places to speak that story of brokenness and hope into others, to inspire them to join the work, to making my neighborhood look more like heaven than earth. To allow everyone to step into God's dream for them, and not just darken the door of a pew or read some Bible verses and then go back to their comfortable life. And so, yeah, I think you're constantly going, I think they go together. I lament because I hope, and I hope because I lament. Constantly. And I think that cycle should be going on all the time. And I think we've talked about it previously. Like, when I think through the examine at the end of the day, God, where did I see you today? Where did I miss you? That's not like there's a movie camera on my life that is just like looking at me, like hovering above me. And it's this very narcissistic question that I'm answering. It's the camera in my vision when I'm having that prayer at night is flipped to the things that I've seen. It's the neighbors that I've passed. It's the interactions I've had. And it's the moments that maybe I chose comfort, or maybe I whisked past that because I didn't want to be inconvenienced, or I put my AirPods in because I didn't want to hear that, or I shifted my gaze because I didn't want to have to deal with the burden that is that thing. And those are the moments God, in those prayers, I think, disturbs me and says, no, hold on a second. I want you to lament this, and I want you to have the same hope for this that I have. That you would carry that burden with you every day, that there wouldn't be a day that goes by that you wouldn't cry. And you wouldn't say, like there's a bigger dream for your place and the people that are there than you want to experience in your selfishness. And I want to startle you to that, outside of yourself. So yeah, I think those are the things that get me. And I'm so thankful for practices like that allow me the camera angle to have to rewind, so to speak, in our old VHS days, rewind and make me replay those moments in my head, and to change my laments and my hopes.
Yeah. As you reflect, I'm thinking about something Dr. Neil Wyndham, who is now a mentor to both of us, used to say to me all the time, which is, what are your tears saying? And I think that's a good question for all of us to ponder. What are our tears saying? What are our tears trying to tell us about God, about the place we live, about ourselves? And it's okay to cry more.
It's okay to cry more. So, yeah, yeah. Actually, I think Frederick Buechner said something very similar. My one of my heroes in faith as well. Like all of our tears are God speaking to us in some way. And if we aren't experiencing any, and I think that's the topic of this podcast, I think that should say something to us as well.
Yeah.
I think we might not be paying attention. We might not be as attuned to the spirit and to the place that we are as God would have us.
Yeah. I think that's the perfect place to end this episode on. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. We're excited to keep going on this podcast journey with you as we walk through the realities of following God in the everyday. If you want to find out more about the Renaissance Network, whether it's our microchurches or future cohorts, you can join us. And you can just head to wearerenaissance.org. And on that note, bye!